Hello everybody, this is Reginald Dixon speaking. I'm glad to have this opportunity of giving you two items of news which I know will be of particular interest. Firstly, that I am now recording exclusively on Rex Records, which are available at the popular price of 1 shilling. And secondly, that a new and wonderful organ has been installed at the Tower Ballroom, Blackpool, and this will be used for all my Rex recordings. Now turn this record over and you will hear me play my signature tune, I Do Like to Be Beside the Seaside.
That recording, made over 50 years ago on a 3-inch 78 RPM record lasting just 40 seconds a side, qualifies as the shortest recorded example in the long, illustrious and musical life of Reginald Dixon MBE. Ironically, the sound that Reg led you to believe was the new organ in the Tower Ballroom was in fact a much smaller studio WurliTzer belonging at that time to the Crystallate Recording Company, later known under the Decca banner. Nor was it the first time that Reg had recorded an organ. That momentous day was in March of 1932, when he began recording for the Sterno label. Since then, Reg has made more recordings than any other organist in the world, a record in itself that is never likely to be surpassed. This week, on Tuesday, Reg will be 80 years of age, and this programme is respectfully dedicated to a gentleman who was responsible in uncountable terms of popularising the mighty Wurlitzer. To help me mark this happy occasion, I'll be including birthday messages from some of the organ world personalities who have good cause to remember Mr. Blackpool, as he was affectionately known worldwide.
My name is Roy Bentley. You've never heard of me. I gave up professional organ playing nearly 40 years ago, following a patron's comments on my performance at the Gaumont in Sheffield. As it happened, I was too young to be shot, so I took up management, and it is as manager of the Astor Theatre at Llandudno I recall your wonderful performance on the Christie organ here. Indeed, you were the last organist to attract a capacity house, so do please come back. On your 80th birthday, may I hope that your future years will be spent on the sunny side of the street. To a great showman and a grand organist, all the very, very best to you on your 80th birthday.
Roy Bentley remembering the occasion when Reg packed them in, as he always did, at a concert. But what of Reg himself? He was born October the 16th, 1904 in Yorkshire, and first visited the famous Blackpool Tower in 1912 on a day trip with his parents, Richard and Alice, who married in 1901 and who also raised 2 daughters.
Oh yes, I remember that. I remember going on the sands with my elder sister. My younger sister wasn't born then, that was the year afterwards, but we used to watch the Punch and Judy show on the sands every day there. Yes, and that was where I used to hear the roundabouts in those days as we went, when the sea receded. That was when I heard I Do Like to Be Beside the Seaside. All those years ago. We went into the tower like a lot of people on a very wet day, and it was very, 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 very crowded. I remember some of the machines where you put a penny in the slot in those days. I must say that some of them were still there when I went all those years later, but they were still intriguing. I always wanted to be a concert pianist. I used to struggle very, very hard rehearsing. I used to do 6 hours a day of practice, as we called it, on the piano when I was in Sheffield. I must have driven people mad playing scales for 2 hours. I was about 9 years old then, and then I had a period of when I wasn't too well. I was rather sickly, and I gave up for a while. Then I started again. I think it would be about 11 when I had another teacher. And then I took it quite seriously, and I was teaching music when I was about 13. I took some letters of a college which I shall not name, which now really don't mean very much. And I started to teach. I had pupils. I think it's money by false pretenses, but anyhow, I was really keen on the piano. I still love the piano. It's my listening is the piano concertos. I enjoy it somehow. There's something about it which with a piano, there are so many ways you can attack a piano. I used to think that anyhow, but I was never intended for a concert pianist, as you realise, and we all realise now. I sometimes think your life is governed for you, but I did enjoy those early days, and I worked very hard. Then, of course, I went to Sheffield University for a while, studying harmony and counterpoint. I should have taken the Bachelor of Music exam, but unfortunately, we landed right in the middle of a slump, a recession it's known as now, and I had to go and work in the cinema. So that was.
Your father, of course, in Sheffield would have expected you to work in the steelworks, I suppose.
He was a steel file cutter, which sound when I say that to people, what did your father do? They look rather blank at me, and I've seen him, an ordinary file without any teeth in it, and with a hammer and a chisel, make a perfect file. But of course, eventually the machines took over, and that became redundant, that type of work. But he had little shops around Sheffield, around the suburbs of Sheffield, where he employed women, and they were cutting files.
But what then made you want to be a concert pianist? I mean, what sparked you off?
I can always remember when I was 5 years old. I remember crying to my mother. I wanted to go and play my piece on the piano. I remember that so well now, at my age. And she used to lock the piano because she said I would damage it. But eventually she gave way, and I go. What it must have sounded like, I don't know. It must have been terrible. But I've always loved music, because in those days, you'd nothing else. You'd no radio, no television.
But as Reg indicated, those post-1418 war years saw local depression, but he was fortunate enough to be able to provide additional family and personal income with his appointment as pianist and musical director at various picture houses, including the Palace Chesterfield, the Healy Palace at Sheffield, and originally the Stocksbridge Palace.
That was where I started. I remember my audition. I played two of Debussy's arabesques on the piano. And the manager is a grand fellow, really little cockney fellow. He came down and went through a trap door in the orchestra pit, and as he came out, he said, "You'll do, mate." And that was how I got the job. And I used to go on my motorbike out to Stocksbridge.
I understand you were inventive in those days, and you added sound effects by the
yes,
piano lid and things.
I took the bottom of the piano out, and when there were bangs coming on the screen, I used to put the pedal down and kick the strings and all sorts of things like that. The piano didn't like it very much, and eventually suffered. And they bought a new piano on the night I left. Yes, it was a grand piano, a boudoir grand. So.
And then you went on to a second cinema in Chesterfield, I think.
Yes, I went over to Chesterfield there, and I used to deputise for the musical director, who was rather an invalid, and that gave me good experience, because playing in cinemas, I used to go down to the Wicker Cinema for 2 hours, and there was a big pile of music on the piano, and I had to read that, follow a violinist, and every time there was a tap of the bow on the next number, and that had to be read and play it to silent films. That was an education, absolutely, and it was an experience which had to be rehearsed, and it had to be, how can I put it? It was an entire job on its own, and it was essential that you could read. It was essential that you could, at the same time, look up at a picture and not lose your place in the music. In later years, I got quite a big library together. There was special music written for it. I got rid of it eventually because it was not very good. Some of the music, you could use some of the classics. In later years, when I went to Healy Palace in Sheffield, we had a good orchestra and we used to play some very, very good music. We used to, as they say, we used to fit the picture. But in those days, they had big trade shows with full orchestras. I remember playing for the film The Foremen of the Apocalypse. That was an Intolerance. That was another very big film. You probably remember mention of that. And I played for the Trade Show. The Trade Show, as you know, was for these exhibitors go there, and they go to see with the book regarding the booking of the film.
But you were playing the organ then, weren't you? At
yes, I was playing the organ.
Yes, at Burley United Methodist Church,
yes,
then, wasn't it?
Yes.
That was the first organ you played, was it?
I did play. Well, I learned to play in Cemetery Road Congregational Church, which is gone now. Yeah. I had another music teacher who taught me to play. I'd only 9 months' lessons on the organ, but I worked very hard.
And you were only 13 when you were playing the organ?
Yes, yes, I was just 13.
But I think you saw the talkies coming in, and you
you
were starting to think about other things then.
Yes, yes. I used to. Often I didn't get home till 1 o'clock in the morning. You see, in those days, we had an operator who loved his, as we say in Sheffield, he loved his bevy. He liked his drop of biddy. And in those days, there was no control over the speed of a machine. These days, it's got to be so many frames a second in order to keep in with the speed of the sound. But by the time, the end of the night, I think he must have been leaning over the machine. It went slower and slower and slower. And we were coming out of the cinema at 1 o'clock in the morning. Fortunately, where I lived, there was a tram depot. I used to catch very often the last tram. And next morning, I was down at the Regent Cinema rehearsing on the WurliTzer at 8 o'clock in the morning in order to get there, to get onto the WurliTzer.
Yeah. That was the first WurliTzer you played, was it?
That was the first WurliTzer I played, yes.
Because I think you moved down to Birmingham for your first job at a WurliTzer.
The first job was at the West End Cinema in Birmingham. That would be about 27, 28. Yes, because I went up to Preston in 29 and got married in 1929 in Preston.
And that again was to take your first job in Blackpool.
I had an audition in 1930, yes. It was a very wild February day. We came on the promenade and frightened to death because, to say, I was out of a job then, and I was told afterwards quite a number of entrants for it. But I didn't know. I thought I was the only one. I'd had a chance to go before, but somehow my mother thought Blackpool was too wicked for me because my mother, they were Methodists, you know, very narrow people. But
the organ you were playing there was for dancing, wasn't it? It wasn't for the cinema anymore. This was going to be for dancing.
Yes.
What did that mean to you?
They asked me if I played for dancing, and Mr. Jepson, you know, musical advisor. I said, oh yes, I played for one dance at the Cutler's Hall in Sheffield. I'd been sent home halfway through there again. I'd had no experience in playing for dancing, but I was desperate. So I got the metronome going. And the very first night, the pianist said to me, what was that? I said, it was a quick step, as you're telling me. And but the musical advisor, Jepson, said to me, he said, have you played for dancing? And I said, oh yes. He said, well, if you don't, I think I've told this story so many times, if you don't make a success of it, you'll go. And there's so-and-so organ as well, so... And of course, there was no amplification. And when you get a crowded ballroom, you couldn't hear the organ at the end of the ballroom. So in 33, 34, we started to make a suggestion for another organ. And
But you, of course, then got a new one with 3 keyboards and a
yes,
grand piano, xylophone, and
yes,
carrying effects.
and I'm responsible for that specification. I say that whether they shoot before it's not, but I want it. We had to have those biting reeds for dance work. Now, of course, they've got marvelous amplification, and they can make it fill the place, can't they, without distortion, and things are so much easier than they were in the days gone by. I keep quoting what there wasn't in those days, but it's perfectly true. It was pretty hard work. You had no microphones. You had no microphones at all to speak to the people. And I never had a heavy voice, a big voice. Before the war, I never got home when the season started. I'd be there in the morning, and then the afternoon, then they decided to introduce me playing in the ballet, with the children's ballet, which a lot of the older people will remember. So there were 2 shows in the summer. There were 2 shows of the ballet, 2:30 and or 3:30, didn't really matter. And 7 o'clock at one time. The times varied, and then we had 2 sessions, and then we had late dancers too. They had all the bands like Joe Loss, Ken McIntosh, Jack Hilton, Ambrose. They used to do a week at the Palace in the varieties, then they'd come across and play for a late dance, and I was in for the interval again. They used to bring me a nice steak and chips at tea time. Which,
How much were you getting a week for this?
well, I started off in the winter time with £6 a week, and in the summer £9 a week.
Friends we still can be, though your love for me now means only sympathy. I still hold the bliss once found in a kiss, when love was my rosary. friends we still can be, though fate does decree that I must set you free. On you it all depends, till life's journey ends, that we two can still be friends.
Of course, even before the war, the mid-1930s, you were already broadcasting, weren't you? 1935,
Yes.
You were on the radio.
Yes, 1 August before the war, I did 8 broadcasts in 1 August week, and they were all live. Some of the, you see, in those days again, you see, you hadn't the recordings. They were live, and they were sent out to places like Canada.
Mm-hmm.
You often wonder if anybody ever heard them. You did get occasional letters, and sometimes they was at 3 o'clock in the morning, some of them, and 4 o'clock in the morning. And then later I started with Luxembourg. I did 3 nights a month, starting at midnight. They wouldn't close the ballroom till 4 o'clock in the morning. And that was, I remember struggling with the melody from Rhapsody in Blue, the middle part, you know, the melody from Rhapsody in Blue. And I had to announce at the end of it, and I kept stumbling over the announcement. And of course, there again, you know, the wax record, tape. And I just did a successful leaning back, and I hear a slow hand clap up on the balcony. It was one of my keen fans, the fireman. He heard it and he thought he was giving me a bit of applause. I said, I could kill you. You just ruined my record. I had to go through the whole lot again after that.
selling millions. These were 78, of course.
Yes.
What was your favourite?
Well, I don't. Do you know? I can't really remember.
Tiger Rag was one, I think, that,
Yeah,
that had a big sell.
That sold. That was the highest selling record about 1934, I think it was, in the country, wasn't it? That Tiger Rag. I used to listen to the dance bands. Well, I must say I must have copied what they did. I consider my technique was because I'd rehearsed so much on the piano and scales, and I'd done all types of scale practice. Minor scales, major scales, double thirds, all that, which gave me a good technique. And you see, now take the modern electronic organ. Your hands don't get strong playing one of those because there's no resistance in them, is there? Now, on a WurliTzer, you've got the time lag to fight too. One fellow once said to me, "Do you realise that your feet are in front of your hands?" I said, "No, I don't realise it, but I know why. Because it takes longer for that sound to go through that big pipe than it does for the shorter ones." Which is true, isn't it?
Yeah.
You see, along an 8-foot pipe, in fact, you've got a 16-foot which goes round twice to save space. You've got to wait until the wind travels round. It can be probably only a fraction of a second, but it's there. Mm-hmm. So therefore, your feet have got to be in front, and the lower the note, the longer it takes. So that comes automatically. But yes, I consider that playing the piano, practicing, as we say, on the piano, was responsible for my technique on the organ. I'm afraid I couldn't do it now.
RAF, I think. Went in as an aircraftman and came out as
Yes, I came acting squadron leader, yes.
Tell me about
What
that.
happened, I tried to join in join up quietly, to go to Gloucester as a radio operator. But someone found out and sent me to Uxbridge as a musician. And I had a 5-piece band, eventually, arriving at Northolt, with 90% personnel Polish. The Polish personnel, very brave men too. I've always had great admiration for the Polish people, I will always say that. And it was, as you know, it was just after the Battle of Britain when I joined up. I know we used to try and play Chopin. They loved Chopin. There was a Polish pilot there, a sergeant pilot. I was acting sergeant at that time and in the sergeant's mess. And they always used to have me to play Poem by Fibish. I felt it wasn't a war, it wasn't what I joined up for. So I went in for a commission and eventually got one. And they put me into movement control, which was connected with RTOs and Air Ministry movements for. In fact, I went on all the D-Day exercises and finally finished up at Air Ministry when they were about to prepare for the invasion of Japan. And of course then they dropped the atom bomb there, and eventually I was demobbed. I don't want to go into a lot of details over the war, but I felt I was a small cog in a very important job, that's all. And I look back that I felt I did something worthwhile.
Hello, Reg. Congratulations on your 80th birthday. Recently, we celebrated my sister Florence's birthday. She is 88 and still playing. I am also as busy as I wish to be. And I often think of the Blackpool Tower days when I held a fort for you. Well, all that matters today is to keep well. And I wish you good health and all you wish yourself from Ina Barger.
I used to occasionally go up to Bangor on my leave and do a broadcast. But I remember on one exercise, I was at Old Sarum, where they were all congregating for the invasion, and I heard an organ as I went past the Nissen huts, and it was Charlie Smart doing the broadcast that I should have done. And I was somewhere in England and nobody knew where I was then. That was prior to D-Day. Yes, looking back, I wouldn't have missed that now, but there were times I used to worry about that, wondering if I ever would get back to playing.
And in spite of all that, of course, you became a national broadcasting figure in the really big days of radio just after the war.
Yes, it was hard work. I felt it was hard work to come back again somehow, because 5 years, another generation had sprung up. See? I mean, now, after 14 years away from Blackpool, a number of people say, "Who's Reginald Dixon?" Which is true. People say, "Oh, you'll live. People remember you forever." No, it doesn't happen, does it?
Although the seaside we go to now is at Blackpool, where Reginald Dixon is playing the organ at the Tower Ballroom, the first selection which he plays is "Follow the Fleet."
I know on the morning broadcast, which astounded me actually, they were 10 o'clock in the morning. They were coming in at 9 o'clock, and the ballroom would be packed with people. It was really remarkable. I couldn't understand it, but just for half an hour's broadcast. But one of the things which they loved, though, was to sing. I remember Victor Smythe saying, "Try to get them singing." I said, "Try, I can't stop them. Let's sing anything." And so therefore that was the idea of the last 5 minutes to sing song. And if it wasn't in, I get letters complaining about it.
You were awarded the MBE, of course, but one of the big honours was to be allowed to switch on Blackpool lights in 1956.
Yes, it was a wonderful year.
You were such a tremendously glamorous figure then. I think to cope with the fans, you had photographs made that tore off like postage stamps, perforated like postage stamps.
Yes. Yes, the firm in Dundee did them for me, and it was glue on the back, and they used to stick them on the corner of the autograph page, and sign it. Yes. I'd almost forgotten about those. I had some of those at one time, but I think they've disappeared like other things.
And you were judging the beauty contest, of course, right?
Yes, you make a few friends then, and I always think a lot of enemies there. I remember walking past, and there's a girl from Sheffield. It was a terrific walk round that bath. It was like walking to the scaffold, I thought, sometimes we walked away. As I'm walking past, the Sheffield girl, she didn't get a prize, and her voice sounds, "That's not a very good picker, Reggie."
'69 was your ruby wedding and your retirement too after 40 years at the.
Yeah, actually, I was 70. Actually, I thought.
70, you actually finished, yes.
Yes.
And you completed
69, of course. That was the starting of it, wasn't it? Yes. In many ways, I didn't want to leave, but I just felt that the strain was beginning to prove too much. You see, I started in May. I know I used to supposedly have a day off, but the last 2 years I did a program with Vince Hill on my day off, and I did two series with Moira Anderson. Well, that was supposedly my day off. I used to get home at 5:30. My wife would have a lovely meal for me. But that was my day off. And then there's a weekend. And of course, you know, Sundays, I did 3 shows on the Sundays. So I didn't play as much as I did before the war because I couldn't. So then I realized that possibly I could probably move around a bit. Then I was able to go over to Holland and with my Dutch friends. I played the very first electronic organ in 1934 in the cellar in the Plaza Sutton. It was a sack of potatoes, supposedly, being brought over against an embargo. The man that told me is gone now, so it won't really matter. But and I realised that that was the first Hammond, because they called it a Le Fleur in those days, because to differentiate between the church and the cinema. The Hammond was the church model, and the same model was the Le Fleur. But that was because some people say, well, we don't want a cinema organ in our church. Now, of course, you've got to be able to, you've got more or less to play a computer now, haven't you? I could get on any Wurlitzer or a Compton and within a short while produce some sounds, a few settings here and there. But I would hesitate with an electronic organ because they don't, they're not the same. They're not alike, are they? They're all different. They all have different positions for this, that, and the other. I think they've been a good thing because they do produce some brilliant young organists too, don't they? You might say, well, you haven't got an electronic organ. I haven't. For the simple reason, they keep improving them. And I think there's a bit of Yorkshire still left in me that I won't get it until I get the ultimate, but that's probably going to be too late then.
This is Don Thompson speaking from San Francisco with my special birthday greetings to you, Reg. I'd like to thank you for the countless hours of musical pleasure you've given me from your records and tapes. I listen to your music constantly. I hope you have a wonderful birthday and a very happy retirement. All the best, Reg.
Hello, Reg. How nice to be able to wish you well on the occasion of your 80th birthday. I'm catching up, by the way. And I don't think you'll mind me recalling the days when you joined me at the Town Hall in Woolwich, London, you on electronic organ, and me at the old Town Hall pipe organ. There was a packed audience of organ enthusiasts and others to purchase our signed autographs, and enough money was raised towards endowing a bed in Woolwich War Memorial Hospital. Soon after that, the war came along and spoiled a lot of things, but not the memory of that wonderful evening, Reg, which will be treasured by me. All the best for the future, from Robbie.
Hello Reg, Phil Kelsall here from the Tower Ballroom of course, and nice to be talking to you on this occasion of your 80th birthday. Hope you're having a nice time. I know you'll have had lots of cards, and I think it's a tremendous credit to you that although you have been left the tower now for some 14 years, that the organ that you designed in 1930, I think it was, is still playing more than ever to this very day, and I think that's tremendous credit to you for your design and the way which you played here during your 40 years here. Of course, we're still in the middle of our season now, or it's coming to an end. It ends on the last day of October, and I'm sure that when you were here, you must have looked forward to the end of the season, just like I am doing now. We're all getting a bit tired, and a few days to go, then it's all over. Anyhow, I hope you're having a nice time, and it's been a pleasure to be able to talk to you through Alan Ashton and Radio Manchester, and I hope you have many more happy birthdays like you're having today.
Hello Reg, this is Bob Barrett from EMI, sending heartiest congratulations on your 80th birthday. I've really lost count, of the number of LPs we cut since I took over from Norrie Paramore as your record producer in 1962. Mostly in the Tower, of course, but several at the Manchester Playhouse and Thursford, plus one in the Beatles studio at Abbey Road even. Most memorable, I suppose, is the so successful Sunday morning Blackpool Tower Ballroom sing-along, recently reissued. Not forgetting getting to grips with Jaap Keiserwaard's magic organ over in Holland. And your happy association with Stuart Elton from Abbey Road goes back much further, of course.
Hello, Reg. This is Stuart. Joining Bob in wishing you a very happy 80th birthday. We've got many happy memories, haven't we?
Well played, Reg. We have both enjoyed every second of working with you. Every second and every note.
Well, greetings to you, Reg. It's amazing to think that you're 80. You seem so bright and breezy last time I saw you. Actually, I haven't seen you for ages. The last time I saw you, I think it was at the Playhouse, wasn't it? 10 years ago, when we celebrated your 70th birthday for the Organist Entertains. And I'm sorry that I can't... I've got the organ in the other room, but I can't play it and talk to you on the phone. Otherwise, I'd like to give you a little burst of, oh, I do like to be beside the seaside. Good luck, Reg, and I hope we meet again before too long.
Hello, Reg, and a very happy birthday from yours truly, Eric Lord. You know, it will be sometime around 1932 when I first heard you broadcast. Up to that time, I'd paid little attention to the theatre pipe organ. I'd concentrated on listening to the dance bands from the London hotels and nightclubs. But after hearing you for the first time, I was hooked on the theatre organ and made a beeline to the local cinema organist for some tuition. I was offered a job about 4 years later on a WurliTzer organ in a new cinema being built in Coventry, and you had been specially booked for the opening week. This was one of the highlights of my life. I shall always remember how kind you were to me during that short stay. In recent years, I've had the pleasure of interviewing you for BBC Radio Lancashire in your own home. Do you remember me booking you for a Sunday concert at Blackpool Town Hall, and after announcing you from the stage, the capacity audience stood up cheering and applauding for a full 5 minutes before you were allowed to sit down at the organ and play? I'd like to close this message to you by wishing you a very happy birthday again and the best of health.
Nice to talk to you on this very, very special occasion for you. I wonder if you can recall the year 1949. I can, very, very well. That was the year that the 10 a.m. broadcast started. And as you know, you and I were in the first lot. And Arthur Spencer of the BBC rang me at the Odeon at Manchester, where I was the organist, and asked me if I would be available for 8 weeks. And I said, of course. And then he said, he asked me, would I prefer Monday or Wednesday? I thought, well, Sunday is my day off. So I plumbed for Wednesday. And he said in a rather tired and bored way, Dixon wants Wednesday. So then I said, well, really, I have no choice. And I didn't have, because you took over Wednesdays, and I put your mind back to the 6th of June 1949. I was on the 4th, you were on the 6th, and your weeks went on and on and on. I just had the 8th. Anyway, all the best, Reg, and thank you for all you've done for me personally over the years. Thank you. Thank you.
Charles Smitten adding his congratulations to those of the other famous organists in today's programme. But there is one more greeting which I've been asked to read out, and it's from Lord Bernstein of Granada. It says, although Reginald Dixon didn't dedicate himself to Granada completely, he often played at Granada theatres to the delight of thousands of people. We remember him with affection and respect as being one of the greatest organists of our time, and send him warm birthday greetings. And we end our programme where we started, in Blackpool, with a happy crowd of holidaymakers and Peter Jepson at the organ.
I was looking the other day, I could see the tower. Whenever we used to drive back home, we'd been away during our holiday. I said to my wife, there's the office, back again tomorrow. And I was still regarded as the office, although it's now 14 years since I left there. Actually, there's a certain amount of luck in life. Well, call it luck if you like, maybe I'm wrong there. As I said before, I sometimes think your life is planned out for you. I have regrets, but I've got a lot of very happy memories. Very happy memories.